opened our bank app that night, like I always do at the end of the month. Everything looked in order, nothing overdue or urgent. Still, something in me felt unusually quiet. The bills were all paid, just like they should be. Electricity, school, groceries, everything checked off without trouble. I noticed how smoothly it all passed this time. On paper, everything seemed responsible and under control. There were no surprises waiting around the corner, but the feeling I expected didn't come. I looked at what was left in the account, quietly counting again. The number was smaller than I expected, and the month wasn't over yet. That thought stayed longer than I wanted. A question came quietly, without warning. If all our money only goes into keeping things running, when do we actually live? It stayed with me longer than the numbers did. Lately, I've been realizing that running a home is not only about making sure everything is enough. Sometimes the harder part is noticing whether life still feels alive. And somehow, money quietly shapes that feeling. That morning started earlier than usual. I moved through the kitchen without thinking too much, just following what needed to be done. Everything felt familiar, almost automatic. Armin sat scrolling through his phone while finishing breakfast. I poured tea and reminded Mira to eat a little more. It looked like any other morning. After they left, the house became quiet again. I moved from one task to another without pause. The silence felt full, but not heavy. While folding Mira's clothes, I paused for a moment. It crossed my mind that we hadn't gone out together in a long time. Even something simple felt distant. It wasn't that we didn't want to. Each time we thought about it, something else came first. The plan quietly faded before it even began. Bills always came first. Needs always lined up ahead of everything else. It became the order I followed without question. Over time, I got used to thinking this way. I stopped noticing what was missing. And slowly, home became a place to manage, not to live. That afternoon, Mira asked me something simple on the way home. Her voice was light, almost playful. But the question stayed with me longer than I expected. I smiled and gave the answer I always give. It sounded easy, almost automatic. But inside, it felt unfinished. At home, the thought returned quietly. It wasn't really about the picnic itself. It was about how often we put small joys aside. That night, I looked at our expenses again. Everything was accounted for. Still, something felt missing. Bills were paid one by one. Each line had a purpose. Each one made sense on its own. There was nothing wrong with any of it. But there was no space left either. It felt full, yet somehow tight. I asked Armin a simple question that night. He took a moment before answering. That pause told me more than words. It had been a long time since we paused together. Somehow, we didn't even notice it fading, and that realization stayed with me. The next morning, I sat down with a notebook and started listing our monthly expenses. I wanted to see everything clearly, without guessing. It felt like putting scattered thoughts into one place. One by one, the numbers made sense as I wrote them down. Nothing looked excessive or careless. Everything seemed reasonable on its own. But then I noticed something missing between the lines. There was no space for small joys. Nothing that simply made life feel lighter. Every amount had a purpose assigned to it. Each number was already spoken for before it arrived. There was nothing left that felt like ours. I began to understand why we felt tired all the time. It wasn't just the work we did every day. It was the feeling of never pausing. Each month followed the same quiet pattern. We worked, money came, and then it was gone again. The rhythm never really changed. There was no room to feel ahead or at ease. It felt like we were always catching up, living, but only just enough to keep going. I realized we had been living in survival mode for a while. Everything worked, but nothing felt alive, and I wasn't sure how long that could last. Mira sat quietly at the dining table, focused on her drawing. I peeled fruit beside her, letting the routine fill the silence. It felt like an ordinary night, nothing special at all. She turned the paper toward me without saying much. The drawing was simple, almost unfinished, but something about it made me stop. I asked her when this moment happened. She answered softly, like it was obvious. Not yet, but she wanted it to. It wasn't about the cost, A simple picnic didn't require much. Yet somehow, even that never made it into our plans. I began to notice something uncomfortable. Maybe it wasn't the lack of money. Maybe it was the lack of space we never created. We always said later, after the bills were done, after things felt settled, but settled never really stayed. There was always something new to take its place, and later kept moving further away. And if it kept going like this, something would quietly disappear. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just slowly, without us noticing. The house feels unusually quiet tonight. I sit alone at the kitchen table with a dim light above me. In this silence, my thoughts feel clearer than usual. A simple thought begins to settle in. We've been managing well enough to get by each month, but something feels quietly missing. Every number has a place and a purpose. Bills, groceries, school fees all accounted for. Yet none of it is meant for simply being together. I start to realize what gives a home its warmth. It's not just stability or routine. It's the small shared moments that quietly fill the space. I reach for my pen without overthinking it. A new line begins to take shape on the page. It feels small, but somehow important. This isn't about spending without thinking, and it's not about luxury either. It's something quieter than that. Maybe it looks like a simple meal outside once in a while, or a small picnic without planning too much, just something to pause and breathe together. These moments don't change our finances in a big way, but they change how the days feel. And maybe that's what we've been missing all along. That morning, I brought the idea to Armand while we sat at the dining table. I could see a pause in his expression, like he was trying to understand something unfamiliar. For so long, we only thought about staying safe. I tried to explain it slowly, choosing words that felt honest. Maybe being safe was not enough if we kept feeling tired inside. There are costs we never write down, but we still carry them. Armand did not answer right away, and that felt important. He sat there quietly, letting the thought settle. Then he nodded, almost like he had been carrying the same feeling. We decided to set aside a small amount that day. It was not a big number, but it felt different from anything we planned before. This time, it was intentional. The number itself was simple, almost easy to overlook, but it carried a quiet shift in meaning. It was no longer just about getting through the month. We said it quietly, almost like a reminder to ourselves. This was not for survival. This was for living, even in small ways that we used to delay. That weekend, we prepared something simple together in the kitchen. Bread, fruit, and cold drinks laid out without any rush. It felt different because we knew why we were doing it. It was not about the food or the place. It was about finally doing something we had postponed too many times. And in that moment, it quietly felt enough. That Sunday felt different from the start. We chose a nearby park without overthinking it. It felt simple, and that was enough. I watched Mira run with a small piece of bread in her hand. Armand sat beside me, quietly opening the food we brought. Nothing special was happening, but it felt full. As I looked at them, something shifted quietly inside me. It wasn't relief like finishing a task. It felt more like remembering how to live. I realized that small happiness does not ask for much. It only needs space we are willing to make, and a moment where we choose to be present. That night, I opened our spending notes again. This time, one line made me pause. It didn't feel like a loss. For once, the money we spent turned into something I could feel. It became a memory I could hold on to. That felt different. I started to understand something new about money. It is not only about getting through the month. It shapes the life inside it. In the end, it wasn't complicated. A little time together was enough, and a small space to breathe made everything feel lighter. Lately, I notice how much of my attention goes into keeping everything paid and in order. It feels responsible, but also quietly exhausting. Somewhere along the way, I stopped asking what we actually needed to feel alive. I used to think being a good parent meant covering every responsibility without fail. But now I see how a home can feel full on paper, yet empty in small, quiet ways. Those missing moments are easy to overlook until they start to matter. I'm starting to understand that money shapes more than just stability. It quietly decides what kind of days we are allowed to have, and sometimes we forget to give it direction beyond survival. These days, I'm trying to hold both sides more gently. Responsibility still matters, but so does how we feel living inside it. I'm learning that balance is not a finish line, just something I return to. Maybe a strong home is not only one that keeps everything under control. Maybe it's one that still leaves space for small, shared moments. And I wonder if you've ever felt that quiet weight, too.